What's up, y'all? Happy Saturday and all that good stuff. Not sure if it's morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world. It's your boy Johnny 5K Music back at you. I actually started making a beat and then I didn't think about it till later. That perhaps I should record and I should document a bit of my process. I am going to try to focus more on my process and creation and just like manipulation of the MPC in a future video. Yeah, but for this one, I'm gonna talk a little bit about how I select or how I arrange my drums because I do things a little bit differently than how I used to do it. Also going to talk about some effects. Going to talk about some benefits of Q links that people may not be aware of. New people, I should say, may not be aware of. People that are new to the MPC. That people with the actually, I shouldn't say the MPC. People that are new to the MPC 1, MPC 1 Plus, MPC Live, or MPC Live 2, because we have to take shortcuts to get to certain functions. I'm not exactly sure how that goes on the Key 37 or the 61, but I know for a fact that for the Live 2, the MPC 1 and MPC 1 Plus, we had to hold the Q link button to get the different function screens, whatever like that, for the Q links. So here we go. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run through my drums. Please be aware that my drums are already processed because again, I didn't think to make the video until after everything was already done. So my bad, y'all. This is my first kick. Okay. This is going to be my sub kick or accent kick. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'll talk about that later. Yeah, that John got some ass on it. Now, this is going to be my skip kick or my ghost kick, whatever you want to call it. I call it skip kick sometimes because they don't really last long. It's just an in-between passing note. But this is that. Okay. This is going to be my first snare sample. Okay. And this is going to be my... Well, let me talk about why I chose that snare, because that snare might not sound the best to somebody, and that's all good and dandy. Basically, when you do your music, you do what sounds good to you and you make it work. But this is part of a layer, and instead of me actually layering all the samples on a single pad, I spread it out because it gives me a little bit more flexibility. I like managing my samples that way because you can either put them all on the same pad, or some people, put them on a string of pads and then connect the channels. So each time you hit one pad, all the pads activate. I don't do it like that. So different strokes, different folks. But so I have that little snare there. It's kind of panned a little bit to the left, but kind of sort of up the middle. Filtered down a little bit, kept all the snap on it. Then we have the second snare, which is going to be, I believe, panned to the left. And I did a little trick where I put a little bit of reverb and small delay on it to give it some space. But I also put a little bit of attack at the beginning of the sample. So yeah, that's got some air to it. This is going to be, I believe this is actually my third snare and a cabasa shaker that I filtered down that I'm actually using for a hi-hat sound. Let me see here, go here. I'm trying to put over some of this channel. Okay, so that's that one. That's that one. Pan hard right to give some space. There's my cabasa shaker. And I believe I also have a clave. I put the clave on the same channel as the cabasa shaker. Didn't mean to do that, meant to split it up, but it is what it is. All right, so here we go. So for my drums, I like to put them on individual channels, right? And then I actually edit them for my MPC 1, 1 Plus, MPC Live 2 users. The way I operate is I hold the Q link button. I go from screen mode to pad scene mode. And the reason that I do that is it gives you a little bit of control beyond over your volume values. Like, okay, on that first option screen and your panning. The second option screen, if you didn't know, that's just gonna be like a shortcut to get to your send effects. You know what I mean? So by default now with MPC 3.0 and up, I believe, was it 3.14 and up? I don't know. Anyway, you by default, the first send channel and the second send channel, the first send channel is gonna be set to reverb by default, which is a stereo reverb, which I'm not really fond of stereo reverbs for drums, but that is, the personal preference. The second send is going to be for a delay, and sounds kind of nutty. But when you think about it, if you set that up a certain type of way, with that short type of delay, that can actually be used for what's that called? That could be like an early reflection type verb when you pair it up with the top send reverb. So they'll allow you to emulate your early reflections of drums in a small room, and then you can use that top reverb or the main reverb to put some tail on it. So it gives like reverb with a bit of dimension. All right. The second option under the Q-Link screen is going to be one of the most important to me anyway. I can't really say for everybody else, but like if you like to pitch and filter your samples and all this type stuff, option number 3 under the pad scene option, when you go to select under Q-Links, you hold the Q-Links, under row number 3, you actually going to have the filter that you chose in your settings. You're going to have direct control of that filter. So let me shut up. Here we go. Okay. You're also going to have control of the resonance on that filter. So let me cut this down halfway. Cut the resonance down. Okay. Then you're also going to have control over the filter envelope. And that's basically going to affect the attack of that filter. So we're going to do it like this, right? I'm going to cut the cut down. Right now is at about 50% or 64. I'm going to cut that down to about 32, right? So that's about 25%. All right, so it's set to 33, whatever. All right, and then we're going to mess with this filter envelope. So you hear what the filter envelope does. So that's how it sounds with no envelope on it, right? That filter's hitting immediately. As you cut the envelope up, you notice how that filter's opening up? It's not opening up, but it's taking effect later. So you're able to hear more of the initial transient of right now we're talking about, I'm talking about percussive instruments. So let's say for this kick, you're able to hear more of the head of that kick. If you cut it all the way up, it's basically like the filter's not on at all, right? So let's exaggerate that a little bit. So right now we had the filter cut off set at about 32, 32 points. I call all the increments on here points. So if I say 25% is equal to 32, that's, 25, 32. 32 points is 1/4 for the 128 total points that you have on the knob. So 25 and 32 is the same to me, and I apologize if I interchange them. I'll try to clarify when I'm saying it. But so here we're at 33 points, or almost 25% of the filter cutoff. We're gonna cut that all the way down to about 12 points, right? So it's darker, just to exaggerate. Now, from here, we're gonna cut that envelope. Now you hear when the envelope gets to about 64 points, you can hear more of the head, you get a little bit more of the tail. And the reason being, again, is because that envelope's taking effect a little bit later in that signal. So from there, normally what I like to do once I get it there, add some resonance. You yeah, it's putting a little bit of snap on top. Now, I want you to remember that my kick is already processed the way that I'm going to use it. So this isn't going to be a kick processing tutorial video. I'll do that because that probably shouldn't take long, even though I talk a lot. I'll probably do one of those, if not tomorrow, one day next week. And it'll probably be like a little short 8 to 10 minute video because I don't really have to talk too much on that one. So yeah. So anyway, that's that. I just wanted to show you that as one of the options under the Q links. Let me see if we're going to cut this down. Put that back down. Oh, the other option that you have under the third row under the Q link thing for the pad scene, and this is crucial. I really like this. You can actually tune your drums while you're making them, bro. Who doesn't like that flexibility? So you can, depending on the resolution of your sample and what's that, the frequency range or whatever like that of your sample, of your drum samples, you can actually emulate, you get a little bit of artifacting simply by cutting that the tune value all the way down and slowing the sample down. Yeah, all them juicy artifacts, delicious, right? All right, so that's gonna be that. The next option that you have in the fourth row of the Q link section, and I use this. It has a very, very, very fine like impact on your sounds. Aside from the first value, which is going to be the attack knob, you could change the amp envelopes on your samples or on your sounds that you have going through. Mainly your drum channel, because I don't think there's any of these things in the pad scene actually affect the instruments, like the plug-in instruments and stuff like that. But yeah, so the first thing you're gonna have is your attack. Okay. The second thing you're gonna have is gonna be your decay. Now, one thing that I have, I kind of have an issue with the amp envelopes available on the Q links. They seem to be backwards because when you shorten that decay, it doesn't really have any effect. Or if you increase it, it doesn't have any effect. But for the sustain, if you shorten it, one thing that I found is that sometimes depending on the length of the sample, those knobs are actually acting in inverse or acting backwards. So when you increase the sustain or you increase the decay, it's actually shortening the sustain or decay. I tend to use those a lot on my sampled 808 drums. So that's that. All right. The next thing I want to get into is the actual sample that I chose to be the primary sample, not the drum sample, but the instrument type sample. Sometimes I start with drums, sometimes I start with the sample. It's all depending on, how you feeling that day at that moment. You know what I mean? You may have, let's grab some samples, see what we can work with. Some people swear to only start with drums. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Some people swear to only start with the sample. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You do you and you do what works for you. Me, I kind of vacillate back and forth. Sometimes samples, sometimes drums. You know what I mean? Sometimes I won't even touch the sample or the drums. I just kind of start with a synth and, create a melody because I have a little ditty in my head or something like that. Not ditty like P. Diddy. No ditty. So, here we go. But this is the sample that I chose. This was from a drum pack that I created. Not drum pack, but a sample pack that I created about 10, 12 years ago. Back when I used to have my was the SL 1200 turntable. Yeah, I thought I was doing a big thing. But yeah, I think I was rocking it's that FL Studio 4 or something like that. But yeah, I was sampling. So the way I would do it is I would actually go to the thrift stores, because where I'm at, we don't have like record stores and all that type of stuff. But if you go to the thrift stores, we have plenty of thrift stores because I live around a military base. A lot of times you could take you $5 or you take you $10 up in the thrift store. walk out with a nice stack of records. You know what I mean? And that's actually how I would chop my samples. And at that time, I was recording because I didn't have a sampler then. I was using, like I said, FL Studios. So I had a little interface. I believe it was a little Edirol interface where I could run the RCAs from the back of my turntable directly into my computer. Because at that time, at that time I did. I had I had the misfortune of working with Pro Tools at that time. I actually never used Pro Tools, but I just used the interface because I couldn't really get with Pro Tools. Not knocking it. Pro Tools might be somebody else's thing. That's not my thing. But I would use the Inbox 2 interface. So I would run the turntable into the interface and then run that into the computer. But the kit that I started to create, I actually named it Deluxe. And I think I had like 130 some record chops on it or something like that. But anyway, I'm talking too much. So here we go. I'm back in my sample folder where I keep my chops. And the sample was actually number 63, Deluxe 63. So this is the sample, right? Actually, that's Marilyn and McCoo or something like that was that sample. I forget who this sample is from, but this is the sample I use. Alright, not too bad, not too bad. A little bright and happy, you know what I mean? But they got the strings, I like that. And you can actually hear the vinyl quality, so I'm gonna play it again. All the snap, crackle, and the hum off that record, huh? So, of course, I manipulated that sample. I chopped it, pitched it, did all my type stuff to it. And this is what I ended up with, or what I ended up with, not where I ended up, but this is what I ended up with for the sample, for the main sample portion. Yeah, I like that. Then I came in with the first kick. Then I came in with my accent kick. This one heavy. Yeah. Then I came in with the skip kick or ghost kick. Alright, so I want to say this, right? I know that sound kind of ugly or sound broken. Sometime down the line, I'm going to do a video specifically dedicated to swing and its implementation in the MPC. I don't know about the older MPC softwares, but I know from 2.0 or is it 2.15 on the MPC Live 2, MPC 1, yada, yada, yada. The way the swing is implemented, you guys have different swing settings for different programs. So like for my samples, right now that's just set at the default 50 swing setting. But for my kicks, the reason they sound off, but they always loop back around on time, because I didn't really. In this instance, all these drums were recorded quantized. Okay, so it's no magical, I got that swing, I can make stuff ugly or make stuff go out of time and come back in time and record that shit, excuse my language, record that stuff quantized, right? And then what I did was I go in for each of the kick sounds that I have, they all have different swing settings, okay? And I wish I could show you exactly what those settings were, because the way I have my MPC set up and the basic settings is that when I touch the second knob on the second Q-Link option under when it's in screen mode, it actually will allow me to adjust the swing level and also the what's that the rate of quantization, 1/16 for 1/16 triplets or 1/8, you know what I mean? And I have that set up in my settings. It may not be for everybody, because if you did all this work to set up these individual swing settings and then by mistake your hand accidentally bumps the knob, and then all of a sudden your swing gets broken, but you don't know how it got broken and you can't recall what instrument it is, the MPC doesn't have a way that I know of where you can actually go in and recall what your swing settings were. Like, they aren't displayed, at least not on MPC Live 2, Live 1, MPC 1, MPC 1 Plus. I'm not sure about the 37, the key 37, and the key 61. But it doesn't do a heads up recall of your swing setting. So you want to be careful with that. So you want to be careful not to accidentally bump the knob, throw your swing off or anything like that, because stuff gets real ugly and then you find yourself restarting a project from scratch. You know what I mean? And that's why in the past, like when I used to start creating beats, I would always create the beat all quantized. Then I would save a duplicate project, and then I would quantize that project. And then that way, if I messed up something, I could just revert back to the original. Now I just kind of develop like a muscle memory. I just don't bump the knob. But for me, it's more convenient than every time you want to set the swing for something, having to go into, you go to the program that you want to be in, with the sound you want to affect. Then you had to go to the piano roll, and you got to do the whole thing where you either select all if you're doing individuals, or what's even more of a pain in the ass, if you're not doing individuals, then you got all these drum sounds layered on this one program. You got to sit there and try to finagle, draw a little loop-de-loop around around the sounds, and then you end up grabbing sounds you didn't mean to grab. And then after you do that, then you got to go to your TC or your time correct button, and then you set the individual value, and then you hit the save, and then you hit the do it, and then find out that swing actually ain't the swing you want. Then you gotta go back. Instead of doing all that, there's a setting when you go into the menu settings and you go to preferences and you scroll down to sequencer. When you hit sequencer, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of that screen, it gives you the option below where it says Q-Link Playhead increment. It gives you the option to select or deselect the option where it says Q-Link swing control applies TC settings or time correct settings on release, right? So as soon as you turn that knob, which again is on the screen mode, which is the default mode on the Live 2, MPC 1, MPC 1 Plus. It's the default value, right? So screen mode is default. Then you go over to your second Q-Link option or your second row of Q-Links, and you touch that second knob. Hold on, let me see. Go back to the screen. When you touch that second knob, then you can actually see swing right there. So if I was to adjust the swing, I turn the knob. When I let go, it applies it automatically. I'm not going back, to the was that program? Was it program or instrument edit or whatever like that? I'm not doing all that. So anyway, yeah. So that's that. So let me cut the beat back on. All right. And then from there we had the first snare. From there the second snare. Now, that goes back to the point. You remember I was saying I like to layer my snares sometimes. Sometimes I do layers on kicks too, but for the most part I try not to have more than one kick striking. To be honest, I don't have time to be sitting there trying to filter down one and then mid filtering another one, then high filtering another. I ain't got time for that. I'd rather just have 3 different sounds on 3 different channels because it's easier to easier for me to manipulate. Okay. But because that one snare has that bit of roll off on the attack and it's panned to the left and it's got a little bit of reverb on it, and the other snare is panned a little bit more left, but it's a little bit more to the right than it is left, it gives it a little bit of depth. So I'm going to play it again so you can hear it. So it gives you a little bit of stereo whiff without having to mess with your kick drums or your other sounds or anything like that. Basically messing up your stereo image. Then this next one is actually going to be, I believe it was. Is this the third? Yeah, I think this is the third snare in the clave, or this could be the cabasa or cabeza. I don't know. I'm not sure how to say it, so I apologize if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. But basically, a shaker. So here we go. Okay, yeah, that's the third snare. And yeah, that's pan to the right. And I actually filtered that down a little bit to muffle it, to give it some depth. And also, I didn't mess with the initial transient on that or the attack on that, because I wanted that one to kind of snap to augment the first snare that I had, which was this one. Let me see. Oh hell, here we go. You know, the accent or augment that one. Let me go to the channel with the with that one. Now playing both. You know what I mean? Just give it a little bit of action. You hear that delay? I was talking to you about the early reflections or whatever like that. And even though that delay sounds long and doesn't really go with the rest of it when you listen to it by itself, when it's in the mix, you actually can't hear all those reflections off that delay setting that I have. So, but it adds a little bit of width, adds a little bit of some harmonics. Not really like harmonics, like crunchiness, but it just adds some what's the word that I'm looking for? I guess you could say it adds another ingredient to the mix. You know what I mean? So, and then from there, this is the cabeza or cabasa, and I also have a clave on this channel. Yeah, the clave is just there to signify the turnaround of that loop. All right, now I want to touch on that clave a little bit, that clave sound, because another thing that I want to show you guys, even though a lot of people are familiar with the, when I say a lot of people, new users are familiar, new MPC users are familiar with the function of the 16 levels as far as altering your, altering your velocity or your tune. For that, to get that clave sound, because a lot of times when you want to add subtle nuances or whatever like that, or different strike sounds to a percussive instrument, you actually go to 16 levels, set that to filter. You won't have to alter the volume. The volume actually remains the same. What it's doing is actually altering the attack of a totally closed filter. Well, I shouldn't say the attack of a totally closed. It's altering the attack and the cutoff of a filter sound, so it gives you now that's on that ugly snare. Let's see, you could get more humanized or non-programmed feel from your percussive instruments when you alter, when you play different filter pads and levels like that. And so for that clave sound, that's actually the only sound that's in this pattern that wasn't fully quantized. That wasn't quantized at all. To give it a little bit more touch, and then I did the filter on it to alter the volume, and also I guess you could say the theoretical stroke. Like how hard the clave was hit together. It gives it some variation. You know what I mean? But here we go. So this is the beat in the whole. I'm going to shut up and we just going to rock this beat. Here we go. clipper in there on the master to give it a little bit of hiss. That's how it sounds with the diode clipper cut off. I spoke about the diode clipper in the last long form video I did where I was talking about how to boom bap my drums. That's the difference that it can make. This is with the diode clipper off. You don't have the hiss, so you don't have so much head on it. This is with it on. You can almost hear the sample noise from the samples that were degraded, and you also hear the noise from the records from that sample. You know, the main sample that I took off the record. In between the chops, you get it kind of breathing. That's the advantage that I recognize from the using the diode clipper. The next thing I did, remember in the last video, I was telling you that I don't really do a lot of multi-band EQing when I'm going specifically for bass. I tend to reach for the default high-pass filter that comes, you know, with the MPCs from the jump. Like, you don't have to purchase an Air product. And I'm not knocking Air. I love Air products, okay? But you can achieve similar effects with the default effects that come with the MPC. So I want you to remember that. You just have to be willing to test them out and actually learn the instrument. So this is it without the high pass and that resonance that I have at about, let me see, what is that? 47 hertz. So I have my cutoff set at 47 hertz, but I have my resonance cut up to 78 or so. So this is it without it. Don't sound bad, but it don't sound good, and that don't sound like you need to eat some more double cheeseburgers or something like that. Joke sound anemic. So this is with it back on. You hear that? That high pass filter brings the ass to the party. You know what I mean? And then from there, I fed it into the bus compressor to kind of pull everything together without the bus compression. This is with the bus compression. Alright, and then for the last thing that I put on this chain, I actually put a low pass filter, because without the low pass filter it's a little bit noisy. So see, that's how it sounds without the low pass filter. You know, to cut off some of them highs and stuff like that I added with the lo-fi plug-in, which I tend to use to add my harmonics and stuff like that. So that we're gonna cut it back on. There we go. A little bit more controlled. You know what I mean? So it doesn't compete with the high frequencies of your rapper's voice. But that's it. I mean, that's it for the video. That's it for this beat anyway. And just mess around with it a little bit like that. You know what I mean? And you just chop it up or whatever. But it's not sequenced, nothing like that. I just want to, you know, show y'all a little bit of how I start out my beats sometimes, and also I want to really show you for users who weren't really aware of, or if you anything like me, like when I first got my MPC, I was just making beats. I didn't particularly know what a Q-Link was. I wasn't really going deep with it. I didn't even hold the Q-Link button down and see what these different features and functions were. To be 100% honest, 92 or 95% of these options right here down under the Q link, I don't use just yet. You know what I mean? I'm still learn something new every day. But I do think that the best thing that I could have learned was the pad scenes option that I was telling you about, and that's the one where it allows you to alter, while you're creating a beat. You don't have to bounce around and go different screens. You can actually alter the volume of the individual samples. You can alter the panning of the samples. If you go over to the second option or the second row of options, you can add or remove different change the level of the sound effects that are going to those individual sounds. If you go to the third row of options, that's the bread and butter one right there, or at least for me, that's the one I really like, because it allows you to affect your chosen filter. And when I say chosen filter, that's the filter that when you go to your menu and you go to your preferences, when you come down to general, I believe it's under general. No, it's not general. Let me see. So it's not, maybe it's under project defaults. Yep, there we go. Under project defaults, right below where it says default pad slice, it says default drum key group filter. I have mine set to MPC 3000 LPF, or when you're in the instrument editor, it'll actually just be called the MPC filter. And I believe that's the last option that you can select. I like that for the default. Different filters have different types. Sometimes I actually have that set to high pass. But that normally doesn't work out too well, because I do better filtering out highs than I do filtering out lows. And then also under my general setting, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, did it wrong again. Okay, so projects. One of these ones I have it set for, where it says, it has like an emulation option, and it gives you the option to select MPC 60 emulation, or SP1200, or SP1200 with ring modulation, or MPC 3000 emulation for your final output. I used to run mine at 60 because 60 has a lot of punch. I really like that. Sometimes I run the SP1200 because there's ring modulation, but because I like to use the lo-fi plugin that comes with MPC by default, a lot of times that gives me a lot more noise that I don't feel like managing than me using like the 3000 or the 60 emulation. Yeah, so that's part of how I'm rolling. So, but anyway, thank you for tuning in. Johnny 5K Music right back at you with another long form tutorial video, or not tutorial, I guess a beat making video. And if you have any questions, feel free to list them in the comments and hit me up. If you aren't subscribed, I don't ask for people to subscribe. This station doesn't make me any money, anything like that. I just like making music, and I like sharing my music and sharing my techniques and my passion with other people who are interested in the same thing. But feel free to subscribe if you like, or if you got any folks that are involved in music or plan on getting involved in music, or you have future aspirations, you can share it with them. But I'll catch y'all next time. Again, Johnny 5K Music, or Johnny5KMusic.official. Who's going to say all that though, right? And I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.